Hi, and welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, I have a story for you today, and I want you people to watch this video through its entirety because I'm going to inform you of something closer to the second half of this show that a lot of you people don't realize and you don't know who you can trust. And I'm going to give you some information. And, I've wanted to do this show for a long time, but I've waited until this time because what I'm going to tell you in the first part of this show is something that I have receipts for. Okay. But I think it's going to be very informational to a lot of you people in my viewing audience. Okay. So basically, I want to start the show by talking about uh, less than a week ago, and many of you probably have heard about this, but there was a uh, Atlanta black barbershop owner who was contacted by some people from the Trump administration to talk to him about hosting a small business roundtable. Now, so they told him they want to help small black businesses. Okay. And of course, this guy, who wouldn't be up for that? Okay. So this guy, they talked for a little while and and somebody contacted him and I guess they told him that somebody else would contact him and give him fill in all the details. Well, I guess somebody else talked to him a day later or whatever. Anyhow, what happened was he agreed to host this roundtable that he thought was going to be a small business roundtable. So uh, on the day of the roundtable, into his shop comes Byron Donalds. And those of you that don't know who excuse me, who Byron Donalds is a Florida congressman, United States congressman. He is a Republican, and he is one of the uh, lackeys for Donald Trump. Okay, and so in comes um, Byron Donalds into this man's barbershop. And shortly thereafter, in comes Ben Carson. Now, you all know who Ben Carson is, all right? Another lackey, okay, for Donald Trump. So, anyhow, this guy, there's shortly thereafter, they're joined by, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 other people. I don't know. It was a small gathering, probably a lot fewer people than they had anticipated. But anyhow, so they all sit around in barber chairs and sit around in chairs and whatever, and they begin a little small discussion. Well, what they were told, let me say, by the way, the owner's name is Ricky Jones. It's Ricky's Barbershop in Atlanta. So Ricky was sitting there and engaging in some small talk, I guess, with Byron Donalds and Ben Carson and some of the other guys. And they were under the impression, at least Ricky was, under the impression that this was going to be, they were going to be joined by Donald Trump. Okay. Well, Trump never shows up. So they get started on the meeting, and all of a sudden, a phone rings. And the phone rings, and Byron Donald, who knew what the deal was, picked up the phone and answered and he said, "Oh, hello, Mr. President. Well, how you doing?" Well, now, Mr. Jones, who was totally, according to him, now I'm going to say that, according to him, was not expecting a call from Donald Trump. You see, he thought that this was a business roundtable for small black businesses in the Atlanta area. So what happens is uh, Mr. Byron Donalds says to Mr. Trump, "Well, I tell you what, I'm going to put you on speakerphone with these gentlemen here." Okay? So he puts the speakerphone down in his lap and says, "Okay, fellas, you all on the phone with the president, Donald Trump." Okay? Now I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. So, anyhow, you can see that Mr. Jones has a funny look and it was a look of not being too pleased with what was taking place. But anyhow, they went on, and Donald Trump started talking about his normal routine. Instead of him talking about trying to help Black businesses, he never talked about that. It was never a business roundtable. Donald Trump, as you well know, has a propensity to start talking about himself. And he starts talking about how the Black people, again, the same old story, the Black people, he's getting so much Black support since he put out his mug shot, and how the Black and the Hispanics are really flocking to him about his mugshot. And he goes on to talk about the tax cut that he put in place when he was president. It was the biggest tax cut of anybody ever, which was a lie, which he does all the time. But anyhow, this tax cut, all of us know about this tax cut. It helped the rich and famous. It helped the millionaires and the billionaires. And here we've got a room full of working class people. Okay. Now, so this goes on for a while, and it goes on for a while. But anyhow, what I want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I want to get to the bottom of this, is that after this meeting was over, and this was on a Wednesday, and after this meeting was over on Wednesday, on Thursday, Mr. Jones started to get calls from irate Black customers to his barbershop. And there were some who were maybe not necessarily customers, but they let him have an earful. I mean, they gave it to him big time. He lost business. They told him they'd never come back. And then those others said they'd never patronize his shop. That was Thursday. On Friday, the calls continued. And this guy gets nervous. And he goes, wait a minute, So basically what he does is, I guess it was maybe Friday evening or Saturday, he calls up, I believe CNN or some magazine, or maybe both of them, newspaper, whatever, and begins to put out the story that he was scammed, that he was misled, but he doesn't say by who. So we don't have any idea who it was that initially called him to set up this meeting. Now, Mr. Jones, and I have to say that, like I said, I don't know. I'm telling you what he's alleging, but he was getting a lot of sympathy at first because people know how Donald Trump and the Trump campaign operate, and they are nothing but scammers, and they are misleading. And I've told you folks before that when these guys start talking about how much of the Black vote they're getting, that's not true, ladies and gentlemen. It simply is not true. And I have said all along, I will give them 9 or 10% because there's always going to be a few ignoramuses out there who will say and do anything for some money. So what happened is this guy says, in my barbershop, we don't talk politics. He says, I'm not into politics. We don't talk politics. Okay? So he said, this was not a political, so not supposed to be, at least is his interpretation, was not supposed to have been a meeting about politics. Well, that all sounds well and good. And knowing how the Trump campaign, and Donald Trump himself know how they operate, it would be easy to understand that he might have been misled. However, when you get to looking into this thing a little deeper, you see some signs that make you say, well, wait a minute. And you have to start asking questions. Now, let me give you an example of what we're talking about here. First of all, the first question is, when you saw Byron Donalds come into your shop, you didn't know who Byron Donalds was, and you saw Ben Carson come into your shop. Don't you think it's a little unusual that a barbershop in Atlanta would have a congressman whose name is Byron Donalds, who lives in Florida, is coming into your shop? And then you've got Ben Carson is coming into your shop, and you don't ask any questions. What are you fellas doing here? Don't you want to know that when you start asking questions? I think I would. But now here's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, that makes you awfully suspicious and makes you not want to believe what this guy is saying. You look on the wall, and apparently he forgot about this. But you look up on the wall, and there's a big sign, probably about I don't know, maybe I'd say about a 12, no, about an 18-inch by probably a 12-inch sign up on the wall says Black Americans for Trump. Now, you mean to tell me you've got a barbershop and you don't know that sign is in your barbershop? Or did you forget? But either way, let me explain something to you. When you say we don't talk politics, I'm not into politics. I got some news for you, sir. Anytime you put a political sign in your yard, in your office, in your business, or on your car, you're politicking. It means you're taking a position behind that particular candidate, whoever it is. And that's what you did. And when people saw that sign, it just damaged and destroyed your credibility. When you couple that with the fact that Byron Donalds is there, Ben Carson is there, you have to know these guys are Black Republicans. And what do you think they were coming to your shop at the same time on the same day to get a haircut from you, Mr. Jones? Come on, sir. Now, to make matters worse, ladies and gentlemen, let me explain this for you. And this is what put the nail in the coffin. And this is why I'm telling you, I've been wanting to do a story like this for a long time. And I'm going to tell you why in just a moment. But here's the thing. To make this story worse for Mr. Jones was he signed a contract with the Trump campaign. He was paid to host that meeting. He was paid to the tune of $4,800. And he accepted it. His name is on the contract. Donald Trump's treasurer's name is on the contract. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've told you before that Black folks, some of them, will buy into whatever Mr. Trump is selling if he's greasing the palm. That's all they want is have that palm greased. And Mr. Jones, I think that probably was the deciding factor. Now, of course, I have to understand, and I believe him when he says he wanted to do whatever he could to help Black business. But the money certainly didn't hurt, okay? And the money is, in my opinion, the money is what caused him not to call a halt and call the meeting off when he saw Byron Donalds and Ben Carson. He didn't call it off when Trump calls up and they put him on the speaker, on the mic, put the mic down, and he's calling in from, I don't know if he's in Mar-a-Lago or where he was at, but he's calling in. He didn't even have the decency nor the respect or the integrity to show up in person for a meeting that he and his ponchos or honchos were calling a Black business roundtable. He didn't show up. He calls in. And then when he calls in, he's talking about himself and how Black people are flocking to him because of his mugshot. How disrespectful. Okay? So I'm just telling you this, and I'm just going to say this. I want you people to understand something. I mean, I'm talking about particularly you people in the Black community. This is an illustration of what happens when somebody like Donald Trump approaches you and opens his pocket or his wallet and starts dishing out the money. I mean, he's got a history of doing this. He did this before in 2015. Don't you folks remember the preacher from Cleveland who was his number one lackey, who was a drug dealer? He and his wife, but Donald Trump had money, and he put that money under their nose, and they got to sniffing that money, and he just pulled them right along by the nose with the money. Now, folks, the reason I bring this up is because I want you to know that Donald Trump talks about all of his Black support. Well, first of all, Donald Trump is a big exaggerator. In addition to being a big liar, he's a big exaggerator. So what Donald Trump does not tell you is that a lot of this so-called Black support that he has is people that are on his payroll. He's paying off these people. Listen, don't you guys remember here, what was it, just a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, and he likes Atlanta for some reason or other, but the Chick-fil-A restaurant that he went to in Atlanta and had a Black woman who was a Republican who used to work with Candace Owens, had paid her to get together a group of Black people to flock to this Chick-fil-A and pretend they're just such a great, they just love Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, this one chick says, "Oh, we don't care what the media says, Mr. Trump. We love you." Remember Ben Scott? I'm sorry, not Ben Scott. Tim Scott. "Oh, I just love you." And Tim Scott was teased, and I'm going to use that word, he was teased into thinking with his dumb ass that he was going to be in contention for vice president. That was Trump using him to get Black support. And now, for the last 30 days, when we get down to the nutcracker, you've not heard one word about Tim Scott being in contention. And I told you guys a long time ago that Ben Scott was never going to be the vice president. So anyhow, what I want to tell you people is that Donald Trump has a history of doing this. He has a history of scamming and using Black folks, and he uses his money to do it. And they're gullible. They fall for it. But I want to tell you the bigger story, and this is why I wanted to do this show. Because I think people need to understand that there are Black people like this all over the country. There are Black people like this in my city and in your city, and I don't care what city you're in, they're there. These are people, they're civil rights organizations, they're preachers, okay? They're ministers, okay? They're social groups or clubs or whatever you want to call them, okay? These are people that claim to have your back and claim to be pro-Black. But they don't have your back. They have their back. Because when they get that check or they get that cash, do you get any of it? You see, and these are people, let me explain something to you. This is nothing new. This has been going on for a while. And these people will sell you out in a minute. And these are people that in most cases you know and you trust. So you have no idea what they're doing. But let me just give you a couple of signs to look for. You watch out for people, and some of them are politicians, don't get me wrong, but they're coming from all walks of life, okay? You watch and see who the powers that be wants to call and select as your leaders, okay? They don't ever call or select any of those people that are going to speak out about their indignities or their wrongdoing. No, They don't ever meet with those people. They don't ever call those people. You never hear them call those people's names. Okay. And these so-called leaders that they handpick. Have you ever noticed? And if you haven't, you need to watch it. They always meet with them alone or secretly. These leaders, so-called leaders, never take anybody from the Black community along with them when they meet with these people so they can speak for us. Hell no. They're looking out for them. And they're looking out for their organizations. Okay? And they're looking out for themselves individually. So be very careful. Don't think it's not happening in your town. And don't think that your people, your politicians, your ministers, your religious leaders, your social organizations, your clubs, your newspapers, whatever, don't think that they would never do this to you, because they're doing it almost every day. All right. And I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. Okay. I've watched this. I've seen this. But you people think you can trust everybody who looks like you. I'm here to tell you, you are sadly mistaken. And you are being taken for a ride, and you don't even know it. All right? So this guy, Mr. Jones, is no different than the preacher in Cleveland, the preacher that he had a meeting with a so-called black church that was full of white people in Detroit. Okay? More than likely, that guy was paid also. I saw him do an interview. He never said during that interview that he was a big supporter of Trump. He didn't deny. He said he was glad that Trump came, but I would say that too if my palm had been greased. Okay? So I want you people to understand, and that's my main reason for doing this show, is I want you people to understand and be on the lookout. And understand, you've heard it before, all skin folks are not kin folks. You can't trust everybody. You cannot pick or let the powers that be pick who your leaders are and say they speak for you, because they're not speaking for you. And if they are, what the hell are you getting out of it? They're getting something. They're getting something, but you're not. Okay? They're getting money. They're getting money under the table. They're getting grants. Okay? They're getting paid off. But you're not getting anything. But, this is what I wanted to tell you all, and I've been wanting to do this show for a long time. Because a lot of black folks do not know who you really, really can trust. And sometimes the very one that you put the most trust in are the ones you should have the least trust in. So all I'm telling you is look for the signs. If you look for the signs, and sometimes you have to know what to look for, but if you look for the signs, you will see them. They're out there just as bright as sunshine in the middle of the day. But if you're not looking for them, they'll go right by you. And they're not ever going to tell you that they're not pro-black and that they're not and don't speak for you. Oh, they've got these great missions. Look, read the mission statements of all of these organizations, of all these clubs, social clubs and groups, okay? And churches and politicians. Read and see what they claim to stand for. See what their mission statement says. Look and see. and you'll find their actions don't match the printed word. A prime example is Kansas African American Affairs Commission. Look at their mission statement. Look at their vision. Look what their printed material says. And look at their inaction. I said inaction. They have not released a single annual report in over 15 years. But look at their vision statement. Look at their mission on their printed literature. Okay? And match that with their actions. You cannot. There's no comparison between what they say. Look at some of their civil rights organizations. Look at their literature. Look at their vision statement. Look at their mission statement. Look what they claim to do and how much they claim to represent you. And yet you can't call a single one of them and get any representation on any given day of the week. But they're being paid. They don't represent you. Try and call them. Don't take my word for it. You know, I have people almost every day. You come to me and say, hey, what's wrong with this organization? What's wrong with this? I tried to call this organization. Okay. And I had a little problem. I couldn't get no help from them. But they claim to be there for me. Well, hey, I can't tell you. I don't know, man. You know, look at their literature. Well, I know, man. They say the literature says that they do this for me. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You know, you have to talk to them. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm just trying to give you information that you need so that you can stop being used by people who are selected by the powers that be to speak for you. And they pay them. And you're not getting anything out of it. Okay? Okay, folks, I just wanted to say that. Now, let me just tell you, like I said, I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. And if push came to shove, I can show you receipts and I can name names. Okay? Just like I'm telling you. The thing that really motivated me to do this was the fact that Mr. Jones down in Atlanta claimed he was misled, and yet he signed a contract to host this event, and he took the money. Now, guess what? Now he said he wants to give the money back because he's lost business, and he's lost more customers. In other words, the revenue he lost from the customers is greater than the amount that he was paid by Donald Trump and company and campaign. But that's the way it happens. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay, you took a risk. You took a risk. And rather than doing your homework and vetting these people that called you on the phone or came to your shop or whatever, finding out what the heck was really the intent and why you picked me in my barbershop for this meeting. And then I see Byron Donalds and Ben Carson come into my barbershop on the day of the meeting, and I don't ask any questions. Why are you here? What brings you here? Matter of fact, what brings you to Atlanta today? Okay? But he didn't do that. But now he wants to give the money back. I don't know. They might, knowing Donald Trump, he'll gladly take the money back, but you can't take your reputation back, sir. You see, you're non gratis now with a lot of potential customers and active customers, or used to be active customers, because of the fact that you fell for Donald Trump's trap that he set for you in your barbershop. Chalk it up to experience, sir. You learned a good, expensive, I think, lesson because your reputation has been tarnished. Your business is going to suffer, even according to you. Okay? But like I said, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. Now, if I'm wrong about anything I'm saying, and Mr. Jones, you're watching this, get in touch with me. I'll give you an opportunity to defend yourself. Okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. Share your comments with me in the comment section, okay, of this podcast. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think. If you disagree with anything I've said, let me know. All right? Otherwise, I'll see you next time.